everybody. So what do you say when you're in a job interview and they ask you this pointed question? They say, what is your current salary? And you're put on the spot and it's very awkward. Why are they asking you this question? First of all, I'm here to tell you, the reason they're asking you this question is because they have absolutely no idea what you're worth. That's the bottom line. Let's get into it, how to answer and what's going on here. Okay, let's ask ChatGPT because I'm going to critique what it says. Okay, so in a job interview, when you're a candidate, when they ask you, what is your current salary? Why do they ask you that question and how should you answer? We'll just start with what it says and then we'll go from there. Okay, so let's see. Why they ask what is your current salary? There are 3 real reasons. None of them are about curiosity. They're trying to anchor you low. Okay, if you say I make $55,000, then suddenly $65,000 feels generous, even if the role is worth $80,000. Okay, yeah, that's true. You've just negotiated against yourself without realizing it. Number 2, they're trying to price you. They're asking what's the lowest number this person will accept, not what is this person worth. Yeah, this is the real reason. They have no idea what you're worth. That's the bottom line. And so they're asking this to get an idea, right? So usually if you're making that much money now or you made that much money in your previous role, what they're going to do is they're going to offer you something in relation to that, usually like maybe 2% more or 5% more, something like that. And that's going to be their starting offer, right? Okay, number 3, they're screening you quickly. Okay, sometimes it's a filter. If you're too expensive, they reject. If you're cheap enough, they continue. Now, just so you know, that is what they're doing. And until you have received a written offer, any question about salary expectations or how much you've made in the past, everything to do with compensation is going to be for this reason. They're basically trying to screen you out, right? They're not trying to have a serious discussion with you about what amount of money would make sense. No, what they're trying to do is they're trying to eliminate you based on you asking for too much. That's the idea. And this question is kind of used for that. So even though they're not asking about your expectation, they're asking about what you previously made. It serves the same purpose. Okay, if you made way more than this pays, you're probably not going to want to take this, and they know that, so they eliminate you. Okay. So the core insight is your current salary is irrelevant to the value of the job. Your past pay is not your market value. Okay. And by the way, when it comes to expectations, saying things like market value and stuff like that, that doesn't really work because then they immediately respond with, okay, and what's that in terms of a number to you, right? So you can't get out of it that way. Okay, so when it comes to how should you answer, option 1, deflect. Okay, it says that's the best default. I would agree. How much? See if you can internalize this. How much money you make working for a third party is none of their business. That's the bottom line. Okay, the reason why they want this information is to use it against you, not to work with you, to try and outmaneuver you. Okay, and a job interview is not a deposition. You don't have to disclose all this kind of information. That's quite frankly none of their business. There's no law that says you have to disclose this, and it's to your advantage if you do. So just remember that. Okay, so clean professional doesn't play their game. I'd prefer to focus on the value of this role and the expectations. I'm open to discussing a fair range once we determine fit. I actually have a different answer. I mean, this isn't bad. You could use that. But I actually have a different answer that I recommend, and that's simply to say this. I'm sorry, I have a personal policy of not disclosing compensation because there are confidentiality issues, privacy issues, and so on. I'm sure you understand. And if they ask you again, they say, yeah, we understand all that, but we still need you to give us a number. What you do is you say exactly the same answer again with a smile on your face. You say, well, I'm sorry, like I said, unfortunately, I can't be of help to you on that because I have a personal policy where I don't disclose personal and confidential information like salary information. I'm sure you understand, right? That's all they're going to get out of you. You got a big smile on your face. You're not creating awkwardness. You're just explaining. That's the deal, right? And now that you have informed them, presumably we can move on. If they still haven't quite got that, then you may need to explain again, but usually that never happens. So that's what I'd say about this. And that answer applies, by the way, for anything that falls under this category. So you can use it not just for your current salary information, but for anything else, right? Okay, so option 2 is redirect to expectations, saying I'd be more interested in understanding the range you've budgeted for this position. Well, it's the same thing. It's a deflection, right? Option 3, give a range if you must. I wouldn't here, because they're asking you for, how much you made, not what your expectations are. So I don't think any of this applies to this question, because that's not what they're asking. Okay? What you should not do not answer directly, I currently make X. The problem then is that you've tied yourself to that number, rightly or wrongly. Maybe that number is too much, and, you've priced yourself out of the market. Or, you're capable of making a lot more than that in this job, but you've just anchored yourself to a low number and you've left money on the table. Don't lie. People have suggesting this is risky and unnecessary. If they verify it later, you're done. Yeah, listen, in a general sense, there's a lot of disadvantages with lying. It's not just, they could find out. There's other problems too, like you start to keep track of what you've said. You lose track of what you've said. Things like this, there's real issues with it. Because you lied about one thing, then the rest of your story doesn't fit. It raises additional questions, blah, 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 blah. It really is, don't do this. If you know what you're doing and you've prepared and you've done your research on how to answer job interview questions, you shouldn't have to do this and still giving yourself the best chance of passing. Don't get defensive, okay? Just flip the table and break out your brass knuckles that you bring to all job interviews. That's always a crowd pleaser. They won't ask that kind of question again. What's really going on here? The question is not about salary, it's about leverage. They're trying to reduce uncertainty, reduce cost, gain negotiating advantage. Yeah, whatever it's about, you don't play the game. Okay, yeah, it could be about this, but it's usually not really about that. It's about eliminating you because you are too expensive, or following the stereotype. The most likely scenario is that you will then ask for too much money and they don't want to pay that much money, so they eliminate you. That's what's going on here. Okay, simple rule to remember: if they ask about the past, bring it back to the future. That's actually not bad advice, but instead of answering their question with a deflection and another question, I recommend answering their question and saying, I don't disclose that for this reason. It's a legitimate reason, therefore I don't. That's what's going on here. Now, if you want to tack on a question to the end of that immediately and say, but I am more interested in learning about this, if you're, willing to discuss that, you have the option of doing that. Okay, so that's not stupid advice. Anyway, hopefully this makes sense. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you got something out of this. I'll see you on the next video. Take care.